The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my brother Ryan work the crowd at his own surprise birthday party. Every fake laugh, every calculated gesture. It was all so perfectly orchestrated, just like everything else in his charmed life. "Speech! Speech!" the crowd chanted, and Ryan stepped onto the small platform we'd set up in the garden, his perfect white teeth gleaming under the string lights. I'm Neve, the sister who planned this whole affair, though you wouldn't know it from the way our parents were fawning over Ryan like he'd personally hung the moon. 38 years old and still their golden child. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," Ryan began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth that made everyone lean in closer. Especially my wonderful sister who put this all together. The crowd turned to me with polite applause. I raised my glass, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. That's when I noticed Landon, Ryan's business partner, slipping through the crowd toward the house. Something about his urgency made my event planner's instincts tingle. "Ryan's always been an inspiration," our father announced, joining him on the platform. From his first business venture to his latest charity initiative, a commotion from the house cut him off. Landon burst back into the garden, his face ashen. "Ryan, we need you inside. Now." The perfect smile faltered for just a second. I watched my brother's jaw tighten as he excused himself, following Landon with measured steps that barely contained his tension. "Everything okay?" I called after them, already moving to damage control mode. "Stay here," Ryan snapped, not even turning around. I waited exactly 30 seconds before following them inside. The sounds of the party faded as I approached Ryan's home office, replaced by harsh whispers and what sounded like someone throwing things. "How did they get these numbers?" Ryan's voice, stripped of its usual charm, sounded dangerous. "Who else knows?" "The email went to everyone on the investor list," Landon replied. "We need to get ahead of this before—" I pushed the door open. Papers were scattered across the floor, Ryan's laptop screen displaying what looked like financial documents. Both men whirled to face me, and for a moment, I saw something I'd never seen in my brother's eyes before. Fear. "Get out," Ryan said, but I was already scanning the documents visible on his screen. Numbers jumped out at me. Massive discrepancies, redirected funds, fabricated reports. "The charity initiative," I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. "It's all fake, isn't it?" "This doesn't concern you." Landon stepped forward, trying to block my view. "Like hell it doesn't. I just spent weeks planning this party, inviting half of your investors, vouching for your character. And we're grateful," Ryan cut in, his smooth mask sliding back into place. "But this is just a minor accounting issue. Nothing for you to worry about." I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign in my throat. "Minor? Those numbers look like fraud to me, Ryan. The kind that puts people in prison." "You always were quick to judge," he said, his voice dropping to that quiet tone that used to make me feel 2 inches tall when we were kids. "Always thinking the worst of me. But what would you know about running a business? Planning parties isn't exactly high finance." The familiar sting of his dismissal hit its mark, but this time, something else rose up alongside it. Rage, maybe. Or clarity. "I know enough to recognize when I'm being used," I said. "You wanted me to plan this party, invite all these people just so you could control the narrative when this broke, didn't you?" His silence was answer enough. Outside, the party continued, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in this room. I turned to leave, my mind already racing with implications, but Ryan's hand caught my arm. "Neve," he said softly. "Family protects family. You understand that, right?" I looked at his hand on my arm, then up into those eyes that had always known exactly how to manipulate me. "Funny," I replied, pulling free. "I don't remember that rule applying when I needed protection." I walked out of the office, leaving my brother and his partner to their crisis. The party lights seemed harsher now, the laughter more hollow. I had a choice to make, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was going to do about my perfect brother. The family dinner table had always been a battlefield. Tonight, 3 days after Ryan's party disaster, The tension was thick enough to cut with the expensive silver knife my mother insisted on using for these occasions. "The media's getting it all wrong," my father said, cutting into his steak. "These accusations against Ryan's foundation are completely baseless." I stabbed at my salad, watching Ryan masterfully spin his story. He sat at his usual place of honor, Landon beside him, both of them the picture of concerned businessmen wrongfully accused. "It's just a clerical error," Ryan explained, his voice carrying that perfect note of measured concern. "Our accountants are already sorting it out. The real tragedy is how this affects the children our foundation supports." My mother reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "Of course they are, darling. Anyone who knows you knows you'd never—" "Actually," I interrupted, setting down my fork, "I'd love to hear more about these children. Which programs specifically are at risk?" The silence that followed was delicious. Ryan's eyes met mine, a flash of warning in them. "Neve?" My father's tone carried that familiar edge of disappointment. "This isn't the time for interrogations." "No?" I smiled, remembering the documents I'd seen on Ryan's computer. "I just think it's interesting that none of the press releases mention any specific programs or beneficiaries." Landon cleared his throat. "We maintain privacy to protect—" "The children, right." I took a sip of wine. "How convenient." "I've been meaning to ask." Ryan smoothly changed the subject. "How's the Collins account going? I heard there were some concerns about your proposal." My hand tightened around the wine glass. Mr. Collins was my biggest potential client, and I'd been pursuing his business for months. The fact that Ryan knew about any concerns meant he'd been talking to people he shouldn't. "My proposal is fine," I said evenly, "unless someone's been spreading rumors." "Just looking out for you, sis, like always." Ryan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Remember that summer you tried to start your own marketing firm? If I hadn't stepped in—" "You mean when you told all your contacts I was unstable and unreliable?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "Yeah, that was real brotherly of you." "Neva." My mother's shock was perfectly practiced. "Your brother was protecting you from making a terrible mistake. You weren't ready." "I had 3 major clients lined up," I shot back, "until they mysteriously backed out after meetings with Ryan." "You're being paranoid." Ryan sighed, playing to his audience. "Mom, Dad, I'm worried about her. She's been acting strange ever since the party." "Because I saw what was on your computer?" "What computer?" my father demanded. "Nothing," Ryan and I said simultaneously, our eyes locked in silent warfare. Landon stood suddenly. "I think it's time we discuss the real reason we called this dinner." He pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table to me. "We want to hire you, Neve, for a series of events to restore confidence in the foundation." I stared at the envelope, understanding dawning. "You want me to help cover this up?" "We want you to help family," my father corrected. "This could be good for everyone. Your business would benefit from the exposure." "My business?" I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "My business that I built after Ryan sabotaged my first attempt? That business?" "Now you're just being dramatic," Ryan said softly. "Take the job, Nevi. Show everyone you can be a team player for once." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "A team player? Like when I gave up my college fund so you could start your first business? Or when I worked 2 jobs to help Mom and Dad after your failed venture nearly bankrupted them? That's enough." My father's fist hit the table. "Your brother has always looked out for this family. If you can't be grateful—" "Grateful?" The word tasted like poison. "For what? The way he's looking out for me now? Trying to make me complicit in whatever fraud he's running?" Ryan's mask slipped for just a second, showing something ugly underneath. "Be very careful what you're implying, sister dear." I grabbed my purse, heading for the door. Behind me, I heard my mother's disappointed sigh, my father's angry muttering. But it was Ryan's voice that followed me out. "Think about the offer, Neve. Family should stick together, especially when things get difficult." I didn't turn around, but I felt his threat settle like ice in my stomach. As I walked to my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed. Maya, remember that favor you owe me? I need everything you can find on Ryan's foundation. Everything. Maya's research landed in my inbox at 3 in the morning, but I was already awake, reviewing the footage from Ryan's live interview. My brother sat there, perfectly composed in his tailored suit, spinning a story about financial transparency and commitment to charity. The morning news show host leaned forward, sympathetic. These allegations must be difficult for your family. They are. Ryan's voice cracked just enough to seem genuine. Especially since... He paused, masterfully manufacturing reluctance. Since what, Mr. Brooks? My phone buzzed. Maya, you need to turn this off. Now. But I couldn't. I watched, paralyzed as my brother destroyed me on national television, since discovering my own sister might be involved in spreading these rumors. Ryan's face showed perfect concern. Nevaeh, she's always struggled with our family dynamic. When she started making accusations about the foundation's finances, we realized she might need help. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. On screen, the host's expression shifted to concerned fascination. Are you saying your sister is behind these allegations? I hate to say this publicly, Ryan continued, but her behavior has become increasingly erratic. She's been jealous of the foundation's success, and when we wouldn't hire her company for our events... My phone rang. Maya. He's lying, I said immediately. I know, but that's not why I'm calling. Check the files I sent, page 16. I pulled up Maya's research while Ryan continued destroying my reputation on national television. The document was a series of bank transfers, dates, amounts. I don't understand what I'm looking at. The scandal about the foundation? They leaked it themselves. Look at the timestamps. They knew exactly when those financial records would go public. They planned it. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The surprise party. The convenient discovery of the financial irregularities. Ryan's perfect response, and now this interview. They're using me as a scapegoat, I whispered. It gets worse. Check your email. A new message popped up from Mr. Collins's office. Subject line, contract termination. The phone slipped from my fingers as I opened it. Professional concerns, recent developments, reputation risks. My doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the window, I saw news vans pulling up outside my house. Maya, I have to go. Don't talk to them. And Nevaeh, there's something else in those files you need to see. I hung up as pounding started on my door. My phone exploded with notifications, messages, calls, social media alerts. Through my window, I watched reporters setting up cameras. Another text from Maya. Check the transfer dates against your old marketing firm's closure. With shaking hands, I scrolled through the documents. The dates aligned perfectly. Large sums moving through shell companies, ending up in accounts that had pressured my former clients to drop me. All traced back to Ryan and Landon's holding company. The doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I saw Landon standing there, alone. I know you're home, Nevaeh, he called out. Let's talk about damage control. I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding. Go away. Can't do that. Your brother's concerned about you. We all are. His voice dripped with fake sincerity. The media's going to run with this story either way. We can help you frame it. Get you the help you need. The help I need? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. Like the help you gave my marketing firm? A pause. I don't know what you think you found. I found everything, Landon. The transfers, the shell companies, the manufactured scandal, it's all here. Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its false concern. Be smart about this, Nevaeh. You're already looking unstable to the media. If you start throwing around conspiracy theories... My phone buzzed again. Maya. Don't tell them what you know. There's more. Call me. Think about your business. Landon continued. Your future. We can still fix this. I looked at my phone. at the email from Mr. Collins, at the growing media circus outside my house. Years of Ryan's manipulation, of being the family disappointment, of sacrificing everything while he took more and more. "You're right," I said finally. "We should talk about fixing this." "Smart girl. I'll tell them you're coming out to make a statement." I watched through the window as Landon approached the reporters, my hands clenching into fists. They wanted a statement? I was about to give them one they'd never forget. The cafe was nearly empty when Aunt Clara slid into the booth across from me, her face drawn with worry. 3 days had passed since Ryan's interview, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing with canceled contracts. "You shouldn't have come alone," she said, glancing around. "Not after what happened at the press conference." I touched my split lip, still tender from where security had escorted me away from the microphones. The headlines had been brutal. "Unstable sister attacks philanthropist brother." "I needed to hear it from you," I said. "About the adoption papers Maya found." Clara's hands trembled as she pulled out a yellowed envelope. "I was there when your parents brought Ryan home. They made everyone swear to keep it quiet. Wanted him to feel like he truly belonged." 32 years, I whispered. "All those times they said I needed to be more like my brother, and he wasn't even—" "Blood doesn't make family, Neve." "No, lies make family, right?" I pushed away my untouched coffee. "Did Ryan know?" "He found out the summer before your marketing firm launched." Clara wouldn't meet my eyes. "That's why he—" The pieces clicked into place. Ryan's sudden interest in my business ventures, the sabotage, his desperate need to maintain control. My phone buzzed. Maya again. I'd been avoiding her calls since the press conference disaster, but this time I glimpsed the message preview. "Collins called. You need to see this." "I have to go." I stood, but Clara caught my wrist. "There's more." "The foundation scandal?" "It's worse than you think. Ryan isn't just moving money around. He's been using it to track down his birth parents." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "He found them last month. They're dead. Car accident years ago. But they had another son, younger." My phone buzzed again. "Maya. Urgent. Colin's exposing everything tomorrow." "I don't understand," I said, though part of me was beginning to. "What does this have to do with—" "Landon Reed isn't just Ryan's business partner," Clara said softly. "He's Ryan's biological brother." The cafe door chimed. Through the window, I saw a familiar car pull up. Ryan's Mercedes. "They've been watching me." Clara's voice shook. "I shouldn't have told you, but after what they did to your business, your reputation—" "Get out the back," I interrupted, already moving. "Now." We slipped through the kitchen just as Ryan entered the cafe. Through the back window, I watched him scan the empty booth, his face darkening. My phone rang. Mr. Collins himself this time. "Miss Brooks." His voice was clipped. "I've received some interesting documentation about your brother's foundation, and about what really happened to your marketing firm." "Mr. Collins, I can explain. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow morning. Given our previous conversation, I thought you deserved advance notice." The line went dead. Beside me, Clara clutched her purse, looking terrified. "They won't let you expose them," she whispered. "They've worked too hard to keep this hidden." My phone lit up with a text from Ryan. "We need to talk. Now." Another from Landon. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I thought about the years of manipulation, the calculated destruction of my business, the careful orchestration of my public humiliation, all to protect their secret, to maintain their control. "What are you going to do?" Clara asked. Through the window, I watched Ryan emerge from the cafe, speaking urgently into his phone. His perfectly crafted world was about to shatter, just like he'd shattered mine. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want," I said, a plan forming. "A family reunion. Neve, they're dangerous, the things they've done. Trust me." I pulled out my phone, typing a response to Ryan. I learned from the best. To Ryan, "Fine. Tonight, the foundation office, just us." His reply came instantly. 8 p.m. Come alone. I turned to Clara. I need everything you have. Documents, photos, anything about the adoption and their real parents. What are you planning? I thought about the security cameras in Ryan's office, about Maya's hacking skills, about the press conference tomorrow morning. The truth, I said, watching Ryan's car pull away. Whether they're ready for it or not, my phone buzzed one last time. Maya, got into their system. You won't believe what I found. I smiled, feeling the weight of years of lies and manipulation finally shifting into something else. Something like power. Game on, brother, I whispered. Game on. The Foundation's office gleamed with success and old money, all polished marble and mahogany. At 7:55 p.m., I stood in Ryan's empty office, Maya's latest findings burning a hole in my phone. The security cameras were already looping old footage. Her gift to me. You're early. Ryan's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway, Landon a shadow behind him. Always so eager to please. Funny, I remember you teaching me that. I turned, noting how they positioned themselves between me and the door. Where are the adoption papers, Ryan? His smile flickered. Aunt Clara's been talking. She's not the only one. I pulled out my phone, watching their reflections in the window. Your birth parents' accident, not very accidental, was it? Landon stepped forward, but Ryan held up a hand. What exactly do you think you know? I know you found them 6 months before they died. I know about the insurance policy that funded your first real business venture. I met his eyes in the glass. I know they were going to expose you. Careful, sister. The word dripped with venom. You're threading dangerous ground. Am I still your sister? Or just another loose end? You're whatever we need you to be. Landon cut in. Like tomorrow's press conference. You're going to admit to fabricating evidence against the Foundation. Mental breakdown, stress-induced paranoia, take your pick. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet office. That's not happening. No? Ryan moved closer. What about Mr. Collins? Would be a shame if his wife learned about those private meetings you've been having. You mean the ones where he showed me proof of your embezzlement? Proof? Landon scoffed. Your word against ours. Again. How did that work out last time? My hand tightened around my phone. Things are different now. Are they? Ryan's voice softened dangerously. You're still the unstable little sister, desperate for attention. Who's going to believe you? The FBI might. I watched their reflections freeze. Maya found the offshore accounts. The real ones, not your decoys. She's been tracking your movements for weeks. Landon lunged forward, but I was ready. The taser in my purse connected with his chest, sending him sprawling. You really think this ends with us in handcuffs? Ryan hadn't moved, his calm more terrifying than Landon's aggression. We own this city, Neve. The media, the police, even your precious Mr. Collins. One phone call and what? You'll destroy me again? I turned to face him fully. Go ahead. But first, explain something. Why keep me around at all? Why not destroy me completely years ago? Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty? Fear? Your family. No, I'm your shield. Your perfect cover story. The unstable sister makes the perfect brother look even better, doesn't she? You don't understand. I understand everything now. The adoption, the accident, the foundation. It's all about control. But you missed something, Ryan. You taught me too well. My phone buzzed. Maya's signal. Somewhere in the building, hard drives were being wiped, data transferred, evidence secured. What did you do? Landon groaned from the floor. Me? Nothing. I stepped over him toward the door. But in about 30 seconds, every major news outlet will receive proof of your involvement in your birth parents' death. Funny how karma works. Ryan's mask finally cracked. You're bluffing. Am I? You taught me everything about manipulation, remember? About playing the long game? I reached the doorway. Check your phone. They both grabbed their phones as headlines started flooding in. Ryan's face went ash white. You can't what? Destroy my family? Ruin someone's life? I smiled, feeling years of pain crystallize into something harder. Watch me. We'll destroy you. Landon snarled, struggling to his feet. You already tried that. My turn now. Ryan stepped toward me, desperation replacing his usual control. Neva, wait. We can fix this. Together, like real family. I paused in the doorway, thinking of all the years I'd wanted to hear those words. That's the difference between us, Ryan. I finally learned real family doesn't need fixing. As I walked away, their phones kept buzzing with notifications, each one another nail in their carefully constructed coffin. Tomorrow's press conference would still happen, but not the way they planned. Sometimes karma needs a little push, and I'd learned from the best how to make it hurt. The charity gala was my masterpiece of revenge, every detail calculated for maximum impact. Crystal champagne flutes caught the light just right, making the ballroom sparkle like broken glass. Perfect, considering what was about to shatter. Everything's ready, Maya whispered, sliding past with the tablet. Live stream connections confirmed. Press is in position. I nodded, watching Ryan work the crowd. He looked almost normal, as if last night's confrontation had never happened. Almost, except for the slight tremor in his hands as he lifted his glass. Quite the turnout. Mr. Collins appeared at my elbow. Though I'm surprised you're still running this event, given the circumstances. Professional obligation, I said, the words tasting bitter. Besides, the foundation's donors deserve to know where their money's really going. The lights dimmed right on schedule. Ryan took the stage, Landon hovering nearby like a well-dressed shadow. Thank you all for coming, Ryan began, his charm dialed to maximum. Tonight we celebrate. The screens behind him flickered to life. Not with the planned foundation video, but with security footage of Ryan meeting his birth parents. Audio crackled through the speakers. You can't threaten me. Ryan's recorded voice filled the room. I've worked too hard. The footage cut out. Every screen went black. Technical difficulties, Landon announced smoothly, but I was already moving toward the control room. Maya met me halfway. They've hijacked the system. Someone must have warned them. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. The attachment was a video. Security footage from my office last week. Me, meeting with Mr. Collins, discussing plans to expose Ryan. But the audio had been altered, making it sound like we were conspiring to embezzle from his company. Clever. Ryan's voice behind me made my blood freeze. Using my own tactics against me, but you forgot something crucial. The ballroom's screens came back to life, this time showing doctored footage of me accepting bribes, falsifying documents, all perfectly edited to seem real. What did you do? I whispered. Insurance policy. Landon appeared on my other side. Been collecting it for years, just in case. The room erupted in murmurs as more footage played. Years of carefully edited moments, all painting me as the corrupt one, the manipulator, the fraud. Miss Brooks, Mr. Collins's voice cut through the chaos. I think we need to discuss the terms of our arrangement. This isn't, I can explain. Save it for the authorities, he said coldly. They're very interested in these recordings. Security guards appeared at the doors, not the ones I'd hired, Ryan's people. Maya was nowhere in sight. You really thought you could beat me at my own game? Ryan's whisper was almost gentle. I invented these plays, Neve. Every move you made, I was 3 steps ahead. The birth parents were a trap. I knew Aunt Clara would tell you. Knew you'd try to use it. He smiled, that perfect practice smile. Thank you for being so predictable. The guards were moving through the crowd now. My phone buzzed again. Maya. They're blocking all outgoing communications. Can't upload the real evidence. You have a choice, Landon said quietly. Take the fall publicly, claim mental instability, or face federal charges. Either way, your reputation is finished. The room spun slightly. Everything I'd planned, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, all turned against me with surgical precision. Even the venue's security cameras were under their control, recording what would look like my public meltdown. Why? I managed. Why go to all this trouble? Because you needed to learn. Ryan's voice hardened. Family protects family. Cross that line and there are consequences. The guards were getting closer. My phone kept buzzing. Probably Maya trying to warn me, but it didn't matter now. Ryan had won. Again. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan addressed the crowd, his voice carrying perfectly. I'm afraid my sister has been struggling with some issues. Tonight's unfortunate display. I ran. Past the guards, through the kitchen, out into the cold night air. Behind me, I heard Ryan's voice on the speakers, spinning the story perfectly. The tragic tale of a jealous sister's mental breakdown. My phone lit up one last time. An email from my biggest client canceling all contracts. As I stood there, watching my career and reputation crumble in real time, I finally understood what Ryan had known all along. In the game of revenge, the winner isn't the one with the truth. It's the one who tells the better story. And my brother had just written my ending. 3 days after my public humiliation, I sat in my empty office, boxing up client files. The last remnants of my career, packed away in cardboard. My phone buzzed. Maya's 20th call today. This time, I answered. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Now, I flicked on the small TV I used for event coverage. Ryan stood at a podium outside his foundation's headquarters, Landon by his side. In light of recent events, Ryan was saying, we're announcing an expansion of our charitable work. The new mental health initiative will help families dealing with... The screen went black. Then blue. Then filled with security footage. Not the doctored versions from the gala, but raw feeds. Ryan and Landon in their office discussing the manufactured scandal. Planning my downfall. Destroying evidence. What is this? I whispered into the phone. Remember Mr. Lee? Your neighbor with the obsessive security system? Maya's voice held a hint of triumph. Turns out he caught some interesting footage of Ryan and Landon breaking into your office last week to plant evidence. A pounding on my office door made me jump. Through the frosted glass, I saw Ryan's silhouette. They can't stop the feed, Maya continued. It's going to every major network, social media platform, and news outlet simultaneously. I'll call you back. The door burst open. Ryan's perfect facade had cracked completely, his face twisted with rage. Where is it? He demanded. The server controlling the broadcast. I don't know what you're talking about. I stood slowly, my hand sliding into my desk drawer where the final piece of evidence waited. Having technical difficulties with your press conference? This is your last chance. Landon appeared behind him, phone in hand. Our IT team can trace the source. To where? Maya's network of proxy servers? Good luck. I pulled out a USB drive. Looking for this? Ryan lunged forward, but I was ready. Careful, brother. One wrong move and every financial record, every doctored document, every secret you've buried goes public, including the real story about your birth parents. You're bluffing. But his voice wavered. We destroyed everything. Did you? Or did you destroy what you thought was everything? I smiled, channeling his own practice charm. You taught me well, remember? Always have a backup plan. We'll recover, Landon said, but he was watching the TV where more damning footage played. We always do. Not this time. I held up my phone, showing them the incoming messages. Mr. Collins sends his regards. Seems he doesn't appreciate being manipulated. The FBI is very interested in his statement. Ryan's mask cracked completely. You don't understand what you've done. The people we owe money to? The ones you were paying off with charity funds? I stepped closer. Maybe you should have thought about that before you tried to destroy me. Again. We're family. He tried, desperation replacing manipulation. No, Ryan, we're not. We never were. I tossed the USB drive to Landon. That's blank, by the way. The real files went live an hour ago. The sound of sirens filtered through my office windows. Ryan's phone buzzed continuously. Probably his lawyers, his investors, his carefully cultivated network all abandoning ship. "You could have had everything," he said quietly, "if you just played your role." "That was your mistake," I replied, thinking I was still playing a role. The sirens grew louder. Landon grabbed Ryan's arm. "We need to go, now." "It won't stick," Ryan said, but his confidence was gone. "We'll find a way to spin this." "Goodbye, Ryan." I sat back down at my desk, starting to unpack the boxes. "Give my regards to our parents. I'm sure they'll find a way to blame this on me too." They fled as red and blue lights filled the windows. I watched them go, feeling strangely empty. On TV, their carefully constructed world continued to unravel in high definition. My phone buzzed. "Mr. Collins. My wife's 50th birthday still needs planning, if you're interested." Then Maya. "Need help unpacking those boxes?" I looked around my office at the career I'd built, lost and reclaimed. At the evidence of a life lived in someone else's shadow, now finally stepping into the light. "Actually," I texted back, "I think it's time for a renovation." Outside, karma was finally catching up with Ryan and Landon. But inside, for the first time in my life, I felt free of their shadow. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world, it's about rebuilding your own. The Collins anniversary celebration sparkled with understated elegance. My first major event since Ryan's arrest. No crystal champagne flutes this time. Sometimes simple wine glasses tell a better story. "Perfect, as always," Mr. Collins said, watching his wife laugh with guests. Though I admit I had doubts after everything. "So did I admitted, adjusting a centerpiece. The newspaper on my desk that morning had featured Ryan and Landon's sentencing. 5 to 7 years, plus restitution to their victims. My phone buzzed. "Aunt Clara. Your parents want to meet. To explain." I slipped the phone away unanswered. Some explanations came too late. "Miss Brooks?" Sophie, the venue owner, approached with a tablet. "There's someone asking to see you. Says it's urgent." In the venue's office, Landon's sister waited. She looked smaller somehow, without her brother's shadow looming nearby. "I found this." She held out a worn envelope, while clearing out their office. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen. Ryan, maybe 7 years old, holding a baby. Me. On the back, in unfamiliar handwriting. My children, finally together. It was in their birth mother's diary. Landon's sister said quietly. "She wanted to adopt you too, but your parents wouldn't give you up." Ryan knew. All these years he knew you were supposed to be his real sister. The photo trembled in my hands. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you deserve to know why he couldn't let you go. Why he had to control everything." She stood to leave. "He loved you, in his way. He just didn't know how to love without owning." Through the office window, I watched the party continue. Dozens of people celebrating love that had lasted through decades of choices, mistakes, and forgiveness. "Tell him," I said finally. "I hope he finds what he's looking for." Back in the ballroom, Maya intercepted me. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have." I handed her the photo. "Add it to the archive?" She nodded, understanding. We'd been documenting everything, not for revenge anymore, but for truth. Sometimes healing started with having proof that your pain was real. "Neve?" Mr. Collins called out. "We're ready for the toast." I moved through the crowd, past faces that had once witnessed my humiliation at Ryan's gala, now smiling with genuine warmth. Amazing how quickly people forgot old scandals when new ones emerged. The microphone felt different in my hand this time. No revenge to orchestrate, no lies to expose. Just a moment to celebrate something real. To love that endures. I raised my simple wine glass. And to the families we choose. Later, as the last guests departed, I found the photo on my desk. Maya had added a sticky note. "Some stories don't need an ending to be over." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Aunt Clara. He asked about you today. Said he's sorry. I thought about Ryan sitting in his cell, finally facing a truth he couldn't manipulate. About Landon, separated from his partner in crime, learning what loyalty really meant. About our parents, left to question every choice that led to this moment. The venue's lights dimmed automatically, leaving me in comfortable shadow. I picked up the photo, studying the joy on young Ryan's face as he held his baby sister. The promise of what could have been. I didn't tear it up. Didn't file it away with the evidence. Instead, I left it on Sophie's desk with a note. For your wall of memories. Sometimes the best stories are the ones we choose not to finish. Outside, the night air carried the scent of approaching rain. Maya waited by her car. Ready to go? The team's waiting to celebrate. I looked back at the venue one last time. At the simple elegance that had replaced crystal perfection. At the honest success built from the ashes of revenge. Actually, I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I think I'll walk. Sometimes the heaviest shadows are the ones we choose to carry, and sometimes letting them go is the sweetest revenge of all. I stepped into the night, leaving the photo and its unfinished story behind. Ahead, the city lights beckoned with possibilities that had nothing to do with the past. It was time to plan something new.
My name is Sarah Johnson, and I'm 35 years old. I live in a small coastal town in California with my husband Michael and our 8-year-old daughter Emily. At first glance, our family might seem peaceful and happy. But the truth is, we're not. I have a big worry in my daily life. The source of my worry is my mother-in-law, Martha. Martha lives about a 15-minute drive from our house and visits us 3 or 4 times a week. At first, I thought she was coming to see her granddaughter Emily. But that wasn't the case. Martha's real purpose was to bully me. Martha is a perfectionist, especially when it comes to housework. She doesn't tolerate any compromise. Every time she comes, she checks the whole house in detail, and if she finds even a speck of dust or dirt, she severely scolds me. Sarah, you're the housewife here. Why isn't the cleaning up to par? Look at this. There's dust on top of the shelves. This is going to be a bad influence on Emily. Martha's words always deeply hurt me. I'm doing my best every day to balance work and housework. But it seems that Martha doesn't see that at all. What's especially painful is when she criticizes me in front of Emily. Emily, your mother can't clean properly. It's a shame you have to grow up in such a dirty house. The dirt in a room reflects the dirt in one's heart. Your mother's heart must be very dirty. Every time I hear words like these, I feel so sorry for Emily. At the same time, I think about talking to my husband Michael, but I can't quite bring myself to do it. One day, I finally worked up the courage to talk to Michael. Hey, about your mother. Can you ask her to stop coming every day and bullying me? Michael's response was unexpected. What are you talking about? Mom is coming for your sake. She's teaching you how to clean. Shouldn't you be grateful? I was shocked. My husband doesn't see any problem with his mother's behavior at all. In fact, he says I should be grateful. But I clean hard every day. Your mother is just looking for dust on purpose. If there's dust, doesn't that mean your cleaning is insufficient? I couldn't argue anymore. My husband is completely on his mother's side. As days like this continued, I gradually lost confidence. I started to feel like nothing was going right, whether it was housework or my job, and I began to feel like I was a worthless person. The only comfort is my daughter Emily. She seems to understand how I feel and sometimes says things like this. Mom, don't mind what Grandma says. You always clean nicely. Mom, your heart is clean. What Grandma says is wrong. Emily's words are a great comfort to me. But at the same time, it pains me that such a young child has to worry about me. Martha's bullying continued, and I kept losing confidence day by day. Emily's kindness was my only support, but even that didn't change the situation. One Saturday afternoon, I went shopping at the local supermarket with Emily. It was rare not to have a visit from Martha that day, and I felt a bit relieved. Emily also showed a cheerful expression after a long time, which made my heart feel a little lighter. After finishing our shopping, we were walking home along the seaside promenade as usual. The gentle California sea breeze was caressing our hair, and in the distance, waves were shimmering in the light of the setting sun. It was a scene that usually calmed my heart, but on this day, I felt something was off. Emily was unusually quiet. Normally, she would frolic while looking at the sea or pick up seashells, but on this day, she was just walking silently. Emily, are you okay? I asked, and Emily just nodded slightly. We approached a slightly elevated rocky area on the promenade. From here, we were closer to the sea, and the sound of the waves was louder. Suddenly, Emily stopped. Mom, I'm sorry. With those words, I was pushed hard by Emily. Losing my balance, I fell from the rocky area into the sea. Emily! Before I could even scream, I was engulfed by the cold seawater. My mind went blank for a moment, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The salty taste of seawater spread in my mouth, and feeling water enter my nose, I hurriedly surfaced. Coughing violently, I desperately looked around. I could see Emily on top of the rocky area. She seemed to be crying, but I couldn't see clearly. Emily! Help me! I shouted, but Emily didn't move from her spot. I was about to panic, but somehow I managed to regain my composure. Fortunately, the sea was relatively calm, and I could swim. I started swimming desperately towards the shore. The cold seawater enveloped my entire body, and my clothes were getting heavier. My arms and legs were gradually getting tired, but I kept swimming desperately. Why would Emily do such a thing? As I swam, my head was full of this question. I couldn't believe that Emily had pushed me. She was always such a kind child who protected me. I finally reached the shore. As I crawled onto the sandy beach, I felt like all my strength was about to leave me. Breathing heavily, I looked back, but Emily was no longer there. Emily! I whispered her name, but there was no response. I stood up, soaking wet and shivering. It seems I lost the shopping bags when I fell into the sea. Feeling at a loss, I started walking unsteadily, thinking I had to get home anyway. My mind was in confusion. I couldn't understand the reason for Emily's action, and I was filled with a mix of fear and sadness. Why would Emily do such a thing? Repeating this question, I hurried home, still soaking wet. I opened the front door and stumbled inside, where silence enveloped me. Emily was nowhere to be seen. Emily! Emily, where are you? I called out, my voice strained, but there was no answer. Anxiety and confusion dominated my heart as I began to take off my wet clothes with trembling hands. Just then, the phone started ringing. I hurriedly picked up the receiver. Hello? Emily. A small voice came from the other end of the line. Mom. I'm sorry. It was Emily's voice. She sounded like she was crying. Emily, where are you? Why did you do that? My voice was shaking. A mix of anger and worry. Mom, listen. Emily's voice was serious. I wanted to save you. Save me? How is pushing me into the sea saving me? Emily took a deep breath and started talking. Mom, I overheard Grandma's plan. She's trying to kill you. I gasped. What are you saying? I heard Grandma talking on the phone. She's after your life insurance money. I was speechless at Emily's words. Martha is trying to kill me. It was unbelievable. But Emily, why did you push me into the sea? We could have talked about this. Emily answered in a small voice. Mom, Grandma was planning to put poison in your dinner tomorrow. But I thought if I just talked about it, you wouldn't believe me. I was shocked by Emily's words. Indeed, considering Martha, I might not have believed it if I had just heard about it. So I thought if I made it look like you had an accident, it would thwart Grandma's plan. If you survived and came back from the sea, Grandma wouldn't be able to carry out her plan. Emily's voice was trembling. Mom, I'm really sorry. But I wanted to protect you. As I listened to Emily's words, various emotions welled up inside me. Fear, sadness, and deep love for my daughter. Emily, I understand how you feel. But it was a very dangerous thing to do. What if I had drowned? I know. I'm sorry. But I knew you were a strong person. Emily's words made me unable to stop my tears. Emily, where are you now? At a friend's house. Come home right away. Let's think about what to do next together. After hanging up the phone, I fell into deep thought. Martha's plan, Emily's actions, and what we should do next. My head was in confusion, but there was one thing for certain. I had to protect Emily. And I had to find a way out of this situation no matter what. I heard the sound of the front door opening, and Emily came back. We exchanged a long embrace and started to make plans for what to do next. When Emily came back, we hugged for a long time. Feeling Emily's small body trembling in my arms, I couldn't stop my tears. Emily, I'm so sorry. I made you carry such a heavy burden. I said while gently stroking Emily's hair. Emily looked up at me, her eyes wet with tears. Mom, I should be the one apologizing. I put you in danger. I gently wiped Emily's cheeks and took a deep breath. Emily, you were trying to protect me. I'm very touched by your courage and love. But from now on, let's think of safer ways, okay? Emily nodded slightly. At that moment, I felt my daughter's growth and strength, and my heart swelled with emotion. Mom, what are we going to do now? In response to Emily's question, I thought for a moment before answering. First, we need to have a proper talk with Grandma. But before that, we need evidence. We talked late into the night, making plans. I was moved many times by Emily's courage and wisdom. The next morning, I decided to take action to improve my relationship with Martha, with renewed determination. First, with Emily's help, we decided to record Martha's phone conversations. A few days later, when Martha came to our house, I greeted her, trying to appear calm despite my nervousness. Martha, let's have a good talk today. Martha looked puzzled but sat down in the living room. Martha, I understand how you feel about me. But we can't leave our relationship like this. Martha tried to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. Please listen. I am your son's wife and Emily's mother. We are family. But your actions are trying to destroy our family. Martha's face turned pale. What are you saying? I'm just. Emily overheard your phone conversation. About targeting my life insurance money. Martha seemed at a loss for words. I played the recording, revealing Martha's plan. Why would you do this? I asked, tears in my eyes. After a long silence, Martha broke down crying. I was just lonely. After Michael married you, I felt like I lost my place. I took Martha's hand. Martha, you are an important member of this family. But actions that hurt us are not acceptable. Martha looked up and met my eyes. I'm truly sorry. Can you forgive me? I forgive you. But from now on, let's make an effort to respect and understand each other. From that day on, we gradually started to repair our relationship. Martha began receiving psychological counseling, and I participated in family therapy. Emily also slowly rebuilt her relationship with Martha. Martha was impressed by Emily's courage and wisdom, and deepened her bond with her granddaughter. A few months later, we went on a family picnic by the sea. Martha brought homemade sandwiches, and Emily was having fun collecting seashells. As I listened to the sound of the waves, I looked around at my family. We might not be perfect yet, but we were definitely moving forward. Through this experience, I learned the importance of family bonds and understanding each other. And above all, I felt deep gratitude for Emily's love and courage. A year has passed since our picnic by the sea. Since that day, the bonds of our family have been deepening, slowly but surely. Martha now accompanies Emily to her piano lessons once a week. Gone is her former strictness. Instead, she gently applauds Emily's performances, which warms my heart. My relationship with Martha has also changed significantly. Every Sunday, we attend a cooking class together. At first, we were tense, but now we can laugh and point out each other's mistakes. Michael has also noticed the change in our family and has started actively making time for family on holidays. At our recent family meeting, we all made plans for next month's vacation together. Emily is brighter and more confident than before. "Mom, I baked cookies with Grandma," she reports happily, "and I can't help but feel joy." Tonight, our whole family is gathered in the living room watching a movie. The scent of popcorn made by Martha wafts through the room, and Emily's laughter echoes. As I lean on Michael's shoulder, I suddenly think, this is what a real family is. Overcoming difficulties, understanding each other, and supporting one another. Not perfect, but filled with love. Emily holds my hand and asks, "Mom, are you happy?" I smiled and answered, "Yes, I'm very happy. Being together with everyone." At this moment, I felt truly happy from the bottom of my heart. There may still be challenges ahead. But with these strong bonds, I believe it all happened in that moment when their two hands touched. "Get away from this child right now," she cried out, and then my mother-in-law stared at her grandchild as if she had seen something terrifying. My son Joseph is 5 years old, but this is the first time he's meeting his grandmother Patricia. As if an electric current had passed through her, Patricia quickly withdrew her hand. Of course, neither my husband nor I had any idea what was going on. What on earth did she mean by getting away from Joseph? They had just met for the first time, and I even thought it was terrible for her to say such a thing. My husband tried to calmly ask for a reason. "Mom, what's wrong? Did Joseph do something? Don't you two feel anything?" Patricia said, ignoring our panic. What could she be talking about? After letting out a short sigh, she said, "This child is currently the target of strong malice." Strong malice. My husband and I looked at each other. Who could be directing such malice? "I don't have any idea," I said. As I was mulling it over, my husband suddenly got up. When he returned after a while, he was holding a laptop. Could it be this person? He opened the laptop in front of Patricia and played one of the videos. Patricia stared intently at the screen. I thought she wouldn't be able to tell anything from this, but Patricia's eyes widened. It's this person. There's no doubt that this is the source of the malice. Then Patricia started muttering something concerning. "My name is Ashley. I run a bakery with my husband Pete, and today the shop is busy as usual. From early morning, we make sandwiches, arrange freshly baked bread, and do a quick clean in front of the store before opening. When opening time comes, customers arrive seeking freshly baked bread. While enjoying light conversation, we introduce seasonal recommended breads, and the customers' faces light up, saying, 'That looks delicious.' Now we have more regular customers, and I'm very happy to be able to talk with them. I, too, was once just a customer visiting this bakery. As I frequented the place, I found myself attracted not only to the bread but also to the owner, Pete. That's how we started dating and decided to get married. When we got married, he said, "Actually, I'm divorced. I divorced my ex-wife when I quit my job to start the bakery." I felt that he must have very bitter memories as he spoke, seemingly forcing the words out. She said she didn't like the financial instability. But I chose to have my own shop. We talked and worried a lot about things like the possibility that he might prioritize the shop over family in the future, or that he might not be able to help much with childcare, but we still decided to be together. "It's okay. We'll definitely manage everything somehow," I said, taking his hand and smiling. After that, we also went to greet my mother-in-law Patricia, and we registered our marriage. Both Pete and I were full of happiness, believing we could overcome anything that might come our way. My mother-in-law, despite her advanced age, lives alone in the countryside, separate from our home. According to Pete, Patricia is said to have strong spiritual sensitivity, so being around many people tires her out. I don't have any spiritual sensitivity and can't feel such things, so I don't really understand. But according to Patricia, sometimes it's happier not to be able to sense these things. So, my mother-in-law has a desire to live in nature, and both my husband and I respect that opinion. Even if I'm not nearby, I'm always watching over you in my heart. That was Patricia's catchphrase. Though I found it a strange thing to say, somehow it made me feel reassured and dependable. My husband and I were blessed with a baby boy the year after we got married, and we named him Joseph. Watching our son grow day by day is the most joyous thing. Even the smallest daily changes make me want to take pictures of everything. There was a bit of loneliness as he gradually became more independent, but I suppose this is how he'll continue to grow up. By the time Joseph turned 5, he had become quite a talkative child. However, he occasionally says odd things. He would happily wave goodbye to people passing by, and then say things like this to people we met in the park: "Hey, someone's riding on you." This was to a person who always walks their dog in the park, but no one was riding on them. Also, while we were at the supermarket during checkout, he confused the cashier by asking, "Who are you piggybacking?" Joseph says these things with an innocent smile, which makes the other person look even more uncomfortable or puzzled. When I told my husband about this, he was very surprised. Maybe he's inherited Mom's gift. Maybe we shouldn't let him talk like that too much in public. We can't really control what he says at kindergarten, but we tried our best to not let him talk much outside. However, there's a limit to what you can do with a 5-year-old child. Our child has a somewhat mysterious air about him, even though he's our own. If he's inherited your mother's gift, couldn't we get some advice from her? Joseph has never met Patricia directly. When Joseph was born, there was a severe infectious disease going around. Now that seems to have settled down quite a bit, and we were thinking of consulting Patricia soon. While we were worrying about Joseph's chatter, we began to notice some changes in my husband's bakery as well. It wasn't that bread sales had improved or that it had become popular and interview requests were coming in. Sadly, defamatory posts began to appear on social media. There were bad reviews saying things like, "The bread is soggy," "The sandwiches smell bad," or "The owner's attitude is poor." This had Pete holding his head in his hands. We always serve freshly baked bread, so why? And was my attitude really that bad? He vented his frustrations while drinking a cold beer at night. Whether because of these posts or not, it seemed that customer traffic was declining. Of course, we also use social media to post about seasonal recommended breads and announce campaigns. And there were customers who came after seeing these posts, and we were gradually increasing our customer base until this happened. In this age of social media dominance, customers stop wanting to visit shops based solely on online posts. It's not like we'll immediately have 0 customers, but this isn't good if it continues. We wanted to turn things around somehow. One day, as I was cleaning in front of the store and preparing to open, I found a garbage bag placed in front of the shop. I picked it up, wondering what it could be. "What's this?" Praying it wasn't dangerous drugs or poison, I looked inside and found it was just ordinary household garbage. Why would someone dump ordinary household garbage here? Who would do such a thing? "Ashley, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Seeing me frozen in front of the store, my husband came over. When I told him about the dumped garbage, Pete looked puzzled for a moment. But he quickly smiled and said, "No need to worry about it. This is how we deal with this kind of thing," he said, throwing the garbage bag into the commercial trash bin behind the store. "Is it really nothing to worry about, as my husband says?" As I stared at the trash bin, I had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. A week later, garbage was dumped again. This time, there were 3 bags, and the smell was terrible. Even Pete frowned at this. As he threw the 3 garbage bags into the bin behind the store, he grumbled, "We're not a garbage dump." After that, garbage bags were dumped several more times, and just as we were getting fed up with it, other strange things started happening. For some reason, Joseph suddenly started crying at night and trembling in fear. "I'm scared." Joseph would wake up in the middle of the night, come to me, and start crying. This had never happened before, so why now? When I asked Joseph, "Did you have a scary dream?" he just shook his head and kept crying with his face buried against me. "Don't come here. Go away." Both Pete and I stayed with Joseph until he fell asleep. That night, after Joseph had fallen asleep, my husband was drinking beer and deep in thought when he muttered, "If this keeps up, let's file a police report." However, we had already thrown away the garbage, and we hadn't heard of anyone seeing someone dumping it. There's also the problem of whether the police would take action without any evidence. After discussing it, we decided to install a small security camera outside the shop to monitor the situation. By this time, perhaps due to the defamatory posts on social media, customers had become sparse. Sales weren't coming in, and my husband seemed discouraged. I wondered how I could encourage him when he was so down. The only consolation was that our regular customers still believed in us. Let's cherish the people who care about us more than those who attack us. Your bread is the best in the world. Right? Have confidence. I said, patting my husband on the shoulder. You're right. All right, shall we try some new menu items? As if his previous gloominess was a lie, Pete began to enthusiastically brainstorm bread ideas. His eyes were sparkling like a child engrossed in a craft project. I loved seeing that face of his. Back when we first met, he would talk on every date about, "It would be nice if there was bread like this, or bread like that." With a sense of nostalgia, multiple ideas scribbled on memos spread across our living room table. As if mocking our efforts, an incident occurred a week later. This time, graffiti had been painted on the walls of our store. There was an illustration of a character I'd seen somewhere before, and next to it was written, "Nasty bread," and other such things. The troubling part was that these were painted with actual paint and didn't look easy to remove. People passing by were surprised and seemed shocked. Our store faces the street, so while there's a lot of foot traffic during the day, there's hardly anyone around at night. As a result, no one had seen the person who did this paint graffiti. Pete kept his mouth tightly shut, his face grim. He clenched his fists, frustration evident in his expression. I felt frustrated and helpless too. No matter how much they dislike my bread, there are things you should and shouldn't do. Although a figure was visible on the security camera, it was dark, and due to the camera angle, the face wasn't clearly visible. Pete decided to file a police report and have them investigate. "When we find the culprit, they won't get off easy," Pete fumed. But strangely enough, after that, there were no more incidents of garbage dumping or graffiti. Perhaps the culprit noticed the security camera while they were in the middle of painting the graffiti. If so, it's possible that the same person was responsible for the garbage dumping as well. While the pranks had stopped, the defamatory posts online continued. Shortly after that, on a day when our shop was closed, Patricia called Pete. "The shop is closed today, right?" "Yes, but what's up?" "I became worried about you all. Can I come visit?" Both Pete and I were surprised. This was the first time my mother-in-law had asked to visit us on her own initiative. For some reason, I'm just terribly worried. The reason was mysterious, but we had no objections. When we told her that, Patricia took a series of trains to come to us. My mother-in-law arrived around 3 p.m., and my husband and I greeted her with smiles. Patricia was smiling too, holding a gift of sweets in her hands. This would be the first time she and Joseph met. Joseph isn't usually shy with strangers, but he was fidgeting a bit with Patricia. Maybe he sensed something. Seeing Joseph's behavior, Patricia smiled gently and said, "Hello, Joseph. I'm your grandmother." Joseph hid behind me as if to say a stranger had come. He stared intently at Patricia, assessing the situation. "It's our first time meeting, isn't it?" "Oh, I have a gift for you." As she said this, my mother-in-law held out the sweets she was holding. Seeing the box of sweets, Joseph's eyes lit up. He happily said, "Ah," and reached out his hand. Because we had been cautioning Joseph not to speak much in front of others, he had stopped pronouncing words properly in front of anyone other than Pete and me. This habit came out even in front of Patricia. "I'm sorry. He still can't speak well," I hurriedly explained, as I always do to people outside. I felt ashamed and apologetic for giving the same explanation even in front of Patricia. I thought she might say, "He's 5 years old and still can't speak. What kind of education are you giving him?" But Patricia didn't seem to mind and handed the sweets to Joseph. It was at that moment when their two hands touched. As if an electric current had passed through her, Patricia quickly withdrew her hand. "Get away from this child right now," she cried out, and then stared at Joseph as if she had seen something terrifying. Of course, neither Pete nor I had any idea what was going on. What on earth did she mean by getting away from Joseph? It doesn't feel good to be told such a thing. I even thought it was terrible for her to say that. Why would she say such a thing? However, while flustered, we tried to calmly ask for a reason. "Mom, what's wrong? Did Joseph do something? Don't you two feel anything?" Patricia said, ignoring our panic. What could she be talking about? Looking at Joseph, touching him, talking to him, what is there to feel? Of course, we feel joy at his growth and happiness at having him nearby, but judging from Patricia's demeanor, that's not what she meant. She might be referring to something spiritual, but we're completely clueless. "You two really are blessed," she said after letting out a short sigh. "This child is currently the target of strong malice." Strong malice. My husband and I looked at each other. Who could be directing such malice? I don't know who it's from, but it's malice from a woman. It's like a curse. Do you have any idea who it might be? Who could harbor such strong resentment? A kindergarten teacher? I'd like to think there's no such person among our friends or customers. As I was mulling it over, my husband suddenly got up. When he returned after a while, he was holding a laptop. Could it be this person? He opened the laptop in front of Patricia and clicked on one of the files. There were several security camera recordings saved there. He played the video showing the person who had done the paint graffiti, and Patricia stared intently at the screen. It was dark outside, and the person was wearing black clothes and a black cap, so their outline wasn't clear. They were small in stature, but that alone wasn't enough to determine if it was a woman. I thought she wouldn't be able to tell anything from this, but Patricia's eyes widened. It's this person. There's no doubt that this is the source of the malice. As I stood there dumbfounded, Patricia started muttering something. "Isn't this Sarah? Sarah? Her?" Pete looked at Patricia with disbelief. "Who is this Sarah?" "It's my ex-wife." "Why now, of all times? How do you know this person is Sarah?" "I can tell by her aura." I felt as if I had stepped into a drama. So these things really do happen. I was so stunned that I couldn't close my mouth. Patricia took a small scented bag out of her purse and handed it to Joseph. It had a sweet smell. "This is a charm. It will deflect the malice, so keep it with you." I was skeptical internally, wondering if such a thing would really work. But Joseph held the scented bag up to his eye level and nodded very seriously. After that, we chatted with Patricia about recent events and had some tea. During this time, Joseph remained silent, tightly gripping the scented bag and not letting go. A few days later, the situation took a sudden turn. Within days of my mother-in-law's visit, we received a call from the police. According to the police officer in charge, they had identified the culprit behind the paint graffiti and the defamatory posts on social media. After ending the call, my husband said dejectedly, as expected, the culprit was Sarah. Both Pete and I were shocked. It was now confirmed that the person captured on the security camera was indeed Sarah, just as Patricia had said. But why would she do such nasty things to this store? From what I'd heard from Pete, Sarah had married another man after divorcing him. That man was supposed to be wealthy, so it didn't seem likely that she would still have lingering feelings for Pete or his store. I don't understand either. Anyway, I'll talk to you properly about it tonight. Since the call came during the day, we focused on running the store. I couldn't help but think about Pete's ex-wife. Maybe she was trying to break up our family. Such thoughts crossed my mind. It was a relief that I could temporarily forget about Sarah while serving customers. That night, after Joseph had gone to bed, Pete told me what he had heard from the police. Sarah and her husband couldn't have children. Sarah had apparently confessed about herself during the police questioning. She had apparently been undergoing fertility treatments, but couldn't conceive, and her relationship with her in-laws had become strained. Being told things like, "When are you going to have a child? You're a useless wife," Sarah gradually lost her confidence. Being told such things must have been incredibly stressful for her. Around that time, Sarah apparently learned through the grapevine that Pete had gotten married. Pete guessed that a mutual friend must have told her. From that friend, Sarah must have also heard about our son. Unable to have a child herself and going through such a hard time, she couldn't understand why Pete was happy, and she unilaterally built up resentment that led to her actions. That's just plain jealousy. To think that for just that reason, she had been writing defamatory posts and vandalizing with paint graffiti. It's terrifying to think that someone could be so envious and hateful. At the same time, I felt a little sorry for her. Surely Sarah too wanted to have a child and live happily with her partner. It's not really anyone's fault. Whether or not one can conceive a child is, as they say, known only to God. I feel sorry for Sarah, but we've been inconvenienced too. The cost of removing the graffiti and the damage from the defamation are significant. My husband declared that he would properly claim compensation from her, just as he had said he would. I'm sure Joseph was scared too. As he said this, he downed his beer in one go. That's right. Joseph too had been the target of this one-sided malice, to the point where it was called a curse. I can't forgive this either. If Patricia hadn't come, Joseph would probably still be afraid and unable to sleep. Thanks to the scented bag, Joseph can now sleep as he did before. The faintly sweet scent seems to be calming Joseph down. If there was anything to worry about, it was whether there would be retaliation from Sarah, or if we would be cursed even more. When I consulted Patricia about this, she surprisingly laughed and said, "There's no need to worry about that." Why not? Once you curse someone, you receive many times that curse in return. So Sarah would soon have the curse returned to her, and she wouldn't be able to curse Joseph anymore. I had very little involvement with these kinds of things, so I gave a rather flat response. In any case, if nothing else happens, that's for the best. We found a trustworthy lawyer and filed a claim for damages against Sarah for this incident. We didn't know how she would react. Maybe the defamation and vandalism of the store would get even worse than before. It was terrifying to think that it might not stop at just graffiti. While we were watching the situation with such anxieties, surprisingly, the compensation was paid immediately. According to Pete's friend, Sarah's husband and his family apparently put up the money. Whether it's because they're the type to care about how others see them or not, they seem to have dealt with it promptly, fearing scandal. Since then, there have been no defamatory posts on social media or pranks on the store. We breathed a sigh of relief. Also, we heard that Sarah and her husband divorced after this incident. Apparently, Sarah's husband and his parents couldn't tolerate her behavior. They probably couldn't forgive her for defaming and vandalizing the store of her divorced ex-husband. Shortly after, Sarah was hospitalized. Whether it was for mental illness or some other ailment, that's not clear. I even think that, as Patricia said, some sort of curse might have rebounded on her. There's a saying about karma, and I guess this is what it means. If you hold a grudge against someone, it comes back to you. Even for someone like me who can't sense spiritual things, this became a chance to believe in it a little. We've started to listen to our son's out-of-the-blue chatter without being confused. As for Patricia, she ended up moving in with our family. Given her advanced age, we were uneasy about letting her live alone. At first, my mother-in-law was hesitant, but Pete succeeded in persuading her. For the first few days after moving into our house, she seemed unsettled, but after a week, she appeared to have adjusted. I wonder if I can manage in a bakery where so many people gather, she had said. But now, as if those words were a lie, Patricia relaxes in the back of the bakery. According to her, the customers are all good people, and she doesn't sense any malice. That's why she can spend her time peacefully. By the way, my mother-in-law had another hidden talent. She could apparently predict the near future of people or animals she met. It seems to be something like fortune-telling, and she says she can tell by sensing their aura. If you try to see, you can see it, she says, laughing like a witch. When my mother-in-law whimsically told something to a regular customer, it actually came true. Mother-in-law, what exactly did you tell them? You see that girl in the suit over there? I told her she's about to get a promotion, so she shouldn't quit her job and should keep working hard. Indeed, that woman is a regular customer who always buys sandwiches to go. She might be in sales, as she always carried a bag full of documents. But lately, I had noticed she looked down. A few days later, she came skipping to Patricia. Just as Patricia had said, she had really been promoted. That's not all. To a person who stopped by the store while walking their dog, she said, "Your dog is suffering, so take it to the hospital." The owner was puzzled, but the next day, the dog started suffering and a disease was really discovered, surprising both the owner and me. After several such incidents, Patricia quietly became popular as the fortune-telling grandmother. But it's troublesome if too many people gather. I'll just talk occasionally. So, my mother-in-law's fortune-telling became a special menu item only for regular customers. Perhaps because of this, the store regained its prosperity. Seasonal menu items are increasing daily. Pete is bringing to life the ideas he had been jotting down one after another. Meanwhile, Joseph has regained his energy and returned to being a talkative child. Having Patricia nearby and playing with him is probably a big factor. "Grandma, there's someone over there." As expected, he points to empty spaces and speaks. Patricia responds to each of Joseph's observations. She teaches him to distinguish between living things and non-living things. It feels like Joseph's ability is gradually becoming controllable as he spends time with Patricia. He no longer suddenly points at empty spaces when we go out. Even the cashier at the supermarket we often visit now smiles at him. Seeing Joseph chatting happily with everyone, both Pete and I feel relieved. I think these ordinary days will continue like this from now on. And I believe that no matter what difficulties arise, we can I'm Barbara Johnson, a 62-year-old former elementary school teacher. Looking out the window of my cozy home in the suburbs of New York, I can see the autumn leaves glowing golden. It reminds me of the many seasons I've witnessed in this house. It's been 2 years since my husband Robert passed away. Although I'm financially comfortable, there's an emptiness in my heart that seems impossible to fill. As I sip my morning coffee, I think about my only son, Michael. At 35, he's become a successful lawyer, making us parents proud. I can't help but smile as I remember his college graduation day. The image of Michael walking proudly in his black gown is as vivid as if it were yesterday. Now, Michael has a happy family of his own. Jessica, whom he married 5 years ago, is a beautiful 30-year-old woman who works part-time as a model. At first, she seemed a bit difficult, but we gradually warmed up to each other. Still, I sometimes find myself perplexed by her flashy lifestyle and occasional cold attitude. 2 years after their marriage, Michael and Jessica had Tommy, my grandson. Now 10 years old, he's become the light of my life. Tommy is a curious and intelligent child who seems to genuinely enjoy spending time with me. Seeing his smile warms my heart and eases my loneliness a bit. Whenever Tommy comes to my house, he always begs me to read him old picture books. When he says, "Grandma, read Winnie the Pooh again," I simply can't refuse. Reading the story and watching Tommy's eyes light up is my greatest joy. However, lately, something's been bothering me. Jessica has been suddenly dropping Tommy off more frequently. She leaves saying she has urgent business, but never elaborates on what this business is. Michael seems too busy with work to notice what's happening at home. I have no complaints about taking care of Tommy. In fact, the time I spend with him gives my life meaning. But I can't help feeling a bit uneasy about Jessica's behavior. Where is she going? And why is she hiding it from Michael? Despite these concerns, I put on a cheerful face for Tommy's sake. Today is another day he's coming over. It's bound to be a fun day. With that thought, I start walking towards the front door. The doorbell rings, and when I open the door, Tommy's smiling face greets me. "Grandma," he shouts cheerfully, hugging me tightly. "Tommy, how have you been?" I ask gently. Jessica seems to be in a hurry, saying, "Thanks, Barbara. I'll pick him up in the evening," before quickly leaving. It's a familiar scene. Tommy and I head to the living room as usual. He immediately runs to the toy box and takes out the dinosaur figurines he's been obsessed with lately. "Grandma, this is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's the king of carnivorous dinosaurs," Tommy explains excitedly. I smile as I listen, but I'm also amazed by his extensive knowledge. "That's impressive, Tommy. You've studied a lot, haven't you?" We spent the morning playing with toys while I listened to Tommy's dinosaur stories. For lunch, I made Tommy's favorite grilled cheese sandwich. "Grandma, your sandwiches are the best in the world," Tommy says with his mouth full. After lunch, we decided to go out to the garden to get some exercise. In the soft autumn sunlight, Tommy runs around energetically. "Tommy, don't overdo it," I gently call out to him. After a while, Tommy comes back to me, looking a bit tired. "Grandma, let's take a little break." We sit on the bench, enjoying the garden view. Tommy leans on my shoulder, his expression peaceful. However, this peaceful moment was suddenly shattered in a tragic way. Tommy suddenly stiffened and started gasping for air. "Tommy! What's wrong?" I hurriedly support his body. The next moment, foam started coming out of Tommy's mouth, and his whole body began to convulse. I felt frozen with fear but tried to stay calm. "Tommy! Hang in there!" I shouted while quickly returning to the house to call 911. "Please hurry, my grandson is having a seizure," I desperately pleaded. The few minutes until the ambulance arrived felt like an eternity. I held Tommy's body, calling his name repeatedly. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly put Tommy on a stretcher. "Ma'am, can you come with us?" one of the paramedics asked me. I quickly grabbed my handbag and got into the ambulance. Meanwhile, I called Michael to explain the situation. "What? Tommy?" "I'm heading to the hospital right away," Michael answered, sounding shaken. Upon arriving at the hospital, Tommy was immediately taken to the emergency room. I waited in the waiting room, trembling with anxiety, for the doctor's diagnosis. After a while, Michael and Jessica rushed in. "Mom, what exactly happened?" Michael asked. I explained in detail what had occurred. Jessica listened silently, but I thought I saw a hint of suspicion in her eyes. Finally, the attending physician appeared and gave us the initial diagnosis. Tommy's symptoms suggest a high possibility of poisoning by some toxic substance. The detailed test results will take a bit more time, but the moment we heard those words, the air in the room froze. Michael was stunned, and Jessica looked surprised. "Poisoning? What do you mean?" Michael asked, visibly shaken. The doctor carefully chose his words as he answered. "We can't be certain yet, but we've detected substances in Tommy's body that shouldn't be there under normal circumstances. Until we get the detailed test results. I felt my mind go blank. How could this happen? Tommy was at my house. As I thought this, I felt Jessica's sharp gaze on me. Barbara, what did you do to Tommy? Jessica asked in a cold voice. I was at a loss for words and could only shake my head. Michael looked confused, glancing back and forth between Jessica and me. At that moment, I couldn't have imagined how this incident would drastically change our family's life. In the heavy atmosphere of the hospital waiting room, Jessica's cold gaze pierces me. Barbara, be honest. What did you do to Tommy? Jessica's voice contains clear hostility. Shaken but trying to maintain my composure, I respond, Jessica, I didn't do anything. I was just spending time with Tommy as usual. However, Jessica refuses to believe my words. As usual. Is there an usual way of spending time that results in poisoning? Michael tries to intervene, but Jessica's anger doesn't subside. Your mother hurt our son. How can you not see that? I can't believe my ears. Could Jessica really think I'm the cause of Tommy's poisoning? Jessica, calm down. We don't know the details yet, Michael says in an attempt to reason with her, but to no effect. Jessica confronts me. You thought Tommy was a nuisance, didn't you? Always being suddenly left with you, it was an inconvenience. I inwardly laugh bitterly at those words. I've never once thought of Tommy as a nuisance. On the contrary, the time spent with him was my reason for living. However, Jessica's fierce accusations start to plant seeds of doubt in my mind. Could I have unknowingly given Tommy something harmful? I desperately try to recall my actions. Jessica, Mom would never do such a thing. Michael tries to defend me, but Jessica won't listen. You always take your mother's side. Think about our family. At those words, Michael's expression clouds over. I feel the pain of our family's growing rift. A nurse comes to explain Tommy's condition. Your child is stable, but he hasn't regained consciousness yet. It will take a bit more time for the detailed test results to come back. Those words bring a moment of relief, but it's quickly overwhelmed by a sense of self-reproach. Why did this happen to Tommy? Did I overlook something? Michael places his hand on my shoulder. Mom, it's going to be okay. Tommy will get better. His kindness brings tears to my eyes. However, Jessica's cold gaze negates that warmth. Michael, let's go home. We'll come back tomorrow, Jessica says. Then, turning to me, she sternly says, you stay away from Tommy. Michael looks conflicted but ends up following Jessica. As they leave, he whispers, Mom, I'll call you later. Left alone in the hospital waiting room, I'm enveloped by a deep sense of loneliness. How did it come to this? Various thoughts swirl in my head. The next day, I received a call from Michael. Mom, Jessica reported this to the police. She still suspects you. I'm shocked by his words. The police. Michael, I really didn't do anything. I know, Mom. I believe you. But it's going to be hard to convince Jessica. Michael's words offer some comfort, but I acutely feel the division in our family. Later, I had to undergo police questioning. With trembling hands, I explained in detail what happened that day. The officer listened calmly, but I thought I saw a hint of doubt in his eyes, which increased my anxiety. When I returned home, I became conscious of the neighbors' glances. Has the rumor already spread? As I spend days cooped up at home, I can't stop thinking about Tommy. One day, Michael visited me alone. "Mom, are you okay?" I tell him about the current situation through tears. Michael listens silently. "Mom, I've been thinking. Don't you think there's something strange about this situation?" At those words, I look up. Michael's eyes showed that he had seen through something. Jessica's behavior, it's a bit unnatural. As if she's hiding something. Michael's words plant a new doubt in my mind. And suddenly, small incidents that I had never paid attention to before started to take on significant meaning. As Michael's words echoed in my head, we received a call from the hospital. They said the detailed test results for Tommy were out. We rushed to the hospital, where the attending physician guided us to the examination room. Jessica was there too, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. The test results show that the substance detected in Tommy's body was a toxin called amatoxin, the doctor began explaining carefully. This is a toxin found in a poisonous mushroom called the death cap. At those words, the room fell silent. Death cap? Michael asks in surprise. There's no way Tommy would eat something like that. The doctor continues, this toxin is extremely dangerous, causing severe symptoms even in small amounts. Fortunately, thanks to early detection and appropriate treatment, Tommy's life is not in danger, but it will still take time for a full recovery. My head is spinning. Death cap. There's no way I would have something like that in my house. Suddenly, Jessica raised her voice. Barbara, you fed Tommy mushrooms you picked from your garden, didn't you? No, I didn't. I desperately deny it. There are no such poisonous mushrooms in my garden. The doctor intervenes. Actually, judging from the amount of toxin detected, it's likely that it was ingested in its pure form. In other words, you mean someone intentionally gave it to Tommy? Michael asked with a trembling voice. The doctor nods slowly. We can't rule out that possibility. At these words, a heavy silence fell over the room. After leaving the hospital, Michael headed to Barbara's house. Mom, let's investigate together. We might have overlooked something. We started searching the house meticulously. The kitchen, the living room, and the room where Tommy often played. Mom, what's this? Michael pulled out a small bag from the back of a shelf. I gasped when I saw the bag. This isn't mine. There was white powder inside the bag. Michael carefully examined it and his face changed color. Mom, this might be amatoxin powder. But how did it get here? Suddenly, a realization struck me. Michael, I remember now. Last week, Jessica came here and was looking for something. Michael's expression changes. Mom, haven't you noticed anything strange about Jessica? Her behavior has been odd lately. We started reviewing Jessica's actions. The sudden drop-offs of Tommy, unnatural outings, and her abnormal hostility towards me. Michael, is there any way you can check Jessica's phone? I tentatively suggested. Michael hesitated but eventually agreed. He accessed Jessica's phone backup data, and there we made a shocking discovery. Jessica had been frequently messaging someone about planning to take Tommy's life. Oh my God. Michael is at a loss for words. We immediately contacted the police. After showing them the evidence and explaining the situation, the police quickly took action. A few hours later, we received word that Jessica had been arrested. She apparently confessed everything during the interrogation. Her motive was my inheritance. She had planned to kill Tommy and pin the blame on me, severing Michael's relationship with me and gaining the right to inherit my estate. Learning this truth, Michael and I were speechless. Why would she go to such lengths? When we returned to the hospital, Tommy had regained consciousness. Seeing his weak smile, we couldn't hold back our tears. Grandma, Dad. We heard Tommy's small voice. We sat by Tommy's bed, holding his hand tightly. The road ahead might be long, but we will overcome it together as a family. The truth came to light, and my innocence was proven. However, the scars left by this incident won't heal easily. Still, as we watch over Tommy's recovery, we have no choice but to move forward, little by little. After Jessica's arrest, our family faced a great trial. Michael was deeply hurt by his wife's betrayal and became quiet for a while. However, as he focused on Tommy's recovery, he gradually began to recover himself. In court, Jessica admitted to all her crimes. Her motives were more complex than we had imagined. Drowning in debt and unable to break free from her addiction to luxury brands, she had been looking for an easy way to get a large sum of money. And that's when she set her sights on my inheritance. In court, Jessica tearfully apologized. I'm truly sorry. I was blinded by greed and ended up hurting my precious family. Her words left us with mixed feelings. Jessica received a sentence of 15 years in prison. Michael decided to divorce and began walking a new path in life. Meanwhile, Tommy's recovery was surprisingly quick, and his strength encouraged us. After being discharged, Tommy came to live at my house. Grandma, I'm so happy we can live together, Tommy said, and my heart filled with warmth. From this experience, we reaffirmed the importance of family bonds. At the same time, we learned the dangers of trusting people too easily. Now, we are starting a new life. Michael is devoted to his work while cherishing his time with Tommy. I feel that my mission is to protect this family. While we have anxieties about the future, we also have hope. If we could overcome this ordeal, surely we can overcome any difficulty. As I watch Tommy playing energetically in the garden, I think to myself, life is full of unexpected events. But if we walk together with our loved ones, Help. On the day before my grandchild's funeral, a faint voice came from somewhere. Huh? What? As I listened closely, it seemed to be coming from inside the coffin. Trembling with fear, I opened the lid of the coffin, and there was my 3-year-old granddaughter, who was supposed to have died from illness, tied up with chains. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Grandma, you know. As unbelievable facts were told from my granddaughter's mouth, I was at a loss for words. Unforgivable. How could this happen? The anger welling up inside me exceeded my limits of patience. I lost my husband in an accident when I was 38. As a widow, I devoted all my energy to raising my son, Timothy, who was 13 at the time. When Timothy was 34, he married a woman named Sarah. You can finally relax now, my friends all said, acknowledging my years of hard work. Timothy and Sarah lived about a 30-minute drive from my house, maintaining a comfortable distance. Soon after their marriage, we found out she was pregnant, and I was eagerly awaiting the birth of my first grandchild. When Sarah was in her 3rd trimester, I visited their house to share some vegetables. We weren't sure about the baby's gender for a while, but it turns out it's a girl, Timothy said. Oh, how exciting! I replied. Yes, but I really wanted a boy, he sighed. The couple seemed visibly disappointed that the baby wasn't their desired gender. With a girl, you'll have the joy of choosing cute outfits, I said, trying to cheer them up. Of course, I thought the gender didn't matter as long as the baby was born healthy, but I was trying to boost their spirits. However, they were so shocked they didn't respond at all. Still, I thought once they saw their adorable newborn, they'd forget they ever felt that way. A few months later, my granddaughter was born safely. They named her Olivia, and she was the sweetest little girl. I truly understood the saying, too precious for words. I visited my son and daughter-in-law whenever I could to see my granddaughter. However, as I observed the two of them, something bothered me. Even when Olivia cried for a long time, they hardly paid attention to her. Oh my, what's wrong? I'd say, reaching out to pick her up, but Sarah would glare at me. Mother-in-law. Don't do that, she'll get used to being held. But isn't it pitiful to leave her crying like this? I was trying to help Sarah feel a bit more relaxed, but it seemed that wasn't the right thing to do. Timothy chimed in with a bitter expression, she's just fussy because she's sleepy. It's trendy now to teach them to sleep on their own from an early age. They both looked annoyed that I had voiced my opinion. I suppose child rearing has changed a lot since my day, I said, deciding to step back and observe for a while. However, as Olivia grew, my doubts about my son and daughter-in-law's parenting only increased. When I visited their house, Olivia was always wearing ill-fitting clothes, and she would eagerly devour the snacks I brought as if she were starving. Are they really taking proper care of her? Worried, I tried to talk to my son about it, hoping to offer some help. Stop nagging. Don't interfere with how we raise our child. Timothy shouted, refusing to listen. What's more, every time I said something, he started treating Olivia roughly. Witnessing such behavior, I found myself unable to speak up and decided to keep quiet. A little while later, around Olivia's third birthday, Sarah became pregnant with their second child. While I was babysitting Olivia during their prenatal checkup, they returned home overjoyed. They had found out their next child would be a boy. "Yes. I'm so excited," Timothy exclaimed. "That's wonderful news. Olivia, you're going to have a little brother," I said. "Yes. I can't wait to meet my brother," Olivia cheered. Seeing Timothy and Sarah's happiness and Olivia's joy, I felt relieved. Maybe they're slowly becoming a real family, I thought. However, my relief was short-lived. Around this time, Olivia started falling ill frequently. Several times, I'd receive a message from Timothy the day before a planned visit saying, "Tomorrow won't work." When I asked why, he'd say Olivia wasn't feeling well. Even when I offered to visit and check on her, they refused. After persistent pleading, they finally allowed me to come over, and I rushed to their house. When I finally saw Olivia after a long time, she looked emaciated. "Doesn't she need to be hospitalized? If she's at home, it can't be that serious, right?" I asked. Timothy hung his head, covering his face with his hands. "We thought it would be better for her to spend her remaining time at home," he said, his voice trembling. Hearing my son speak like this, I knew something was terribly wrong. "What's her diagnosis? It must be quite serious, right?" I was filled with disbelief and a desire to take Olivia's place if I could. After that, I visited Olivia as often as time allowed, but my son and daughter-in-law gradually prevented me from seeing her, saying it might tire her out. This went on for about a month, and then it happened suddenly. "Olivia has passed away," Timothy informed me, and my world went dark. She was only 3 years old. She had so many joyful experiences ahead of her. Thinking about how I couldn't do anything for her, I broke down in tears. I was also worried about Sarah, who was in her final month of pregnancy, and my heart ached imagining how devastated she must be. When I went to my son's house, funeral preparations were underway, and Olivia was already in her coffin. As I approached the coffin, wanting to see Olivia's face, Timothy, who had just entered the room, stopped me. "No, don't open it," he said. "She went through tough treatments, so her body is in bad shape. I don't want you to see her like that." "That bad?" I imagined a truly horrific end, unable to even see Olivia's face. Though part of me couldn't accept it, I tried to tell myself that Olivia would always be in my heart. Changing the subject, I asked my son if there was anything I could help with, but he said, "We're fine for now," so I decided to go home for the time being. The next day, I visited their house again. It was the day of the funeral, but strangely, no one else had arrived yet besides me. "Who else is coming?" I asked. "No one. We want to send her off quietly, just as family," Timothy replied. "Sarah's parents are working overseas. We contacted them, but they said they couldn't make it in time for the funeral, though they'd definitely come later." I understood it was sudden, and it might be difficult for them to return at such short notice. We'll give Olivia a proper send-off, even if it's just us, I thought. I was standing in front of the coffin, reminiscing about the time I spent with Olivia, when Timothy's phone rang, and he stepped outside to take the call. At that moment, I heard a faint "help me" coming from somewhere. Listening closely, it seemed to be coming from inside the coffin. Trembling, I opened the lid, and to my shock, there was Olivia, who was supposed to be dead, bound in chains and pleading for help. Olivia? What on earth is going on? I was confused by this sudden turn of events, but I knew without a doubt that my son and daughter-in-law were involved. I quickly helped Olivia out and hid her in the closet, telling her, "Wait here for just a bit, okay? Sarah's gone into labor." Timothy came running back, his voice full of excitement. "I'm taking Sarah to the hospital now, so you should go home," he said, gathering his wife's belongings and tidying himself up. "What about Olivia's funeral?" I asked. "That's not important right now. The boy who's about to be born is what matters." He said this as if it were the most natural thing in the world, without even a change in his expression. "But it's sad to leave Olivia alone." "I'll stay here and keep watch," I suggested, feeling it would be more convenient to remain in the house. "Just because we're not here doesn't mean you can look inside the coffin. It would make Olivia sad," Timothy warned, looking thoughtful for a moment before hurrying out of the room. "Even if you tell me not to look, it's already too late," I thought to myself. After confirming that Timothy and Sarah had left, I rushed to the closet where Olivia was waiting. "Olivia, it's all right now," I said, hugging her tightly. "I'm so glad you're alive." After that, I heard an unbelievable story from her. As I had suspected, Timothy and Sarah were indeed the culprits. I will never forgive them. Unable to contain my anger, I decided to punish them and began preparing to corner the two of them. The next day, I received a call from my son. A healthy baby boy was born, he announced in an elated voice. "Congratulations. We must celebrate." "I'll come to the hospital later," I replied. About 3 hours after the call, I visited Sarah's hospital room. "Look, Mom. It's our long-awaited son. Isn't he cute?" Timothy said excitedly as soon as I entered the room, holding up his newborn son. He and Sarah exchanged glances, smiling happily at each other. "You won't be smiling for long," I thought to myself. When I asked them about Olivia's funeral, their expressions changed instantly. "Oh, we're busy with the new baby, so we decided to just cremate her without a funeral. We'll let you know when it's all done," Timothy answered dismissively, as if it were a bothersome task. Now, it's time for their punishment to begin. I gave a signal behind my back, and Olivia ran towards the newborn baby. "Wow! He's so cute. This is my little brother, right?" Seeing this, my son and his wife were visibly shocked, looking back and forth between Olivia and me. "Oh my! Olivia!" I pretended to be surprised by her appearance. "You opened the coffin. Didn't I tell you not to?" Timothy confronted me, his tone harsh. I glared back at him. How could you chain her up and lock her in a coffin? That's despicable. Huh? That's none of your business, is it? I explained how I discovered Olivia. When I opened the coffin lid, Olivia's mouth was covered with cloth, but it had slipped a bit, allowing her to call for help. Just imagine how scared Olivia must have been, unable to move in that dark box. As I started to say this, my son suddenly hugged Olivia tightly. You came back to life. That's great, isn't it, Sarah? Yes, it really is. They were putting on an exaggerated act, thinking they could fool me. Olivia, can you tell me why you were in that box? I asked my granddaughter with a gentle smile. Well, Daddy and Mommy wrapped me up tight. Then they said a devil was coming, so I had to wait there, Olivia explained, stumbling over her words but trying her best. She's saying this, but can you explain what it means? I asked. Timothy had lost his earlier bravado and became less talkative. Not wanting Olivia to see me corner her parents, I beckoned her and said, I need to have an important talk with your parents now. Can you wait in the hallway with my friend? Okay, I understand, she replied. I had asked a friend to come along and help me with this situation. After confirming that Olivia had left the room, I slowly turned to face Timothy and Sarah. Now, I need you to explain everything clearly, I said. Unable to withstand my piercing gaze, they quickly averted their eyes. You can't believe what a child says. That's right. She's only 3 years old. Her memory can't be trusted. They desperately tried to deny their actions, refusing to admit what they had done. I took out a notebook from my bag and held it out to them. But what's written here is true, isn't it? Timothy's voice cracked as he asked, How did you? This notebook contained details of their plan. Shall I read it aloud? The funeral is fake, meant to deceive Mom. Further down, it was written that if Olivia died, they expected to receive financial aid for funeral expenses. I had found this while searching their room after they had rushed to the hospital when Sarah went into labor. It's the worst to snoop around someone else's house. But that's just notes I took about an interesting mystery drama I saw on TV the other day, my son declared boldly, snatching the notebook from me. He looked triumphant, but of course, this wasn't the end. Then what about this? I said, pulling out another document from my bag and thrusting it at Timothy. What's this all about? He demanded. It was Olivia's medical report. When I rescued Olivia and hugged her, she winced in pain, saying, It hurts. When I lifted her clothes to check, I saw several bruises on her body. Suspecting my son and daughter-in-law of mistreating her, I immediately took her to the hospital. The doctor told me, this child has been regularly subjected to physical abuse, and her nutritional state is poor. Is she not being fed properly? He then provided me with this medical report. So that's why Olivia devoured the food so eagerly when I brought some to your house before, I said. They kept their heads down, not answering. What's going on? Why are you doing this? I pressed further. At first, my son wouldn't even meet my eyes, but then he sat down in a chair, manspreading. We wanted a boy, but she was born a girl. That's the problem, he blurted out. Children are precious gifts, I said. No way. Girls are useless, aren't they? Timothy started talking non-stop, as if he had given up trying to hide anything. He explained that once they found out their second child was a boy, they decided they no longer needed Olivia. However, they thought it would be suspicious if she suddenly disappeared, so they came up with the plan to pretend she was sick and eventually claim she had died. Well, we haven't been feeding her properly lately, so we thought she'd eventually just weaken and die on her own. My son said this with a smirk, casually admitting to such a terrible thing without any hesitation. There was one thing I couldn't understand. Even though you say that, you didn't actually kill her. Isn't that because deep down, as parents, you truly love Olivia? I asked. Timothy and Sarah looked at each other, then burst out laughing. Love? There's no such thing. If she died, we'd lose the child support payments and our income would decrease, right? That's right. The only one we want to love is this son, Sarah said, lovingly stroking the baby's head she was holding. At that moment, I realized my anger had reached its peak. If that's the case, there was no need to chain her up and put her in a coffin. I shouted, suppressing the urge to slap them both. However, my anger didn't seem to affect them at all. But that wouldn't create the right atmosphere, you know. Besides, kids can do unexpected things, so we thought it would be safer to keep her restrained and locked in the coffin, my son said matter-of-factly. My body trembled with rage at his nonchalant attitude. Also, you always come to our house and dote on Olivia, so we were worried she might tell you what we've been doing to her someday, Timothy continued. So that's why you pretended Olivia was dead. You thought I wouldn't come around anymore? I asked. Bingo. Timothy said with a grin. Now that we have our boy, you can have Olivia if you want her, he added. That's right. We don't need her anymore, so do whatever you like with her, Sarah chimed in. They were treating Olivia like an object, and worse, they seemed to be enjoying it. Before I knew it, I had grabbed my son by the collar. Want to fight? I won't go easy on you just because you're my mother, Timothy said provocatively. But I realized that if I gave in to this, I'd be no better than them. So I let go of my son and glared at them both. I'll raise Olivia and your newborn son myself, I declared. What? Are you crazy? We're not giving up our son. No way. They shouted angrily. It was time to deliver the final blow of my punishment. I've already reported this incident to the police and Child Protective Services. You should be prepared for how the authorities will judge parents who abuse their children, I said. As soon as I said this, Sarah grabbed Timothy's arm and kept shaking it, pleading, "What are we going to do?" over and over. But Timothy just stood there, dumbfounded, unable to answer. I think the police might be arriving here soon, I added. Wait a minute. What if they really take our son away? What should we do? Timothy asked. That's not my problem. You brought this on yourselves, I replied coldly. We'll take good care of Olivia from now on, so please tell them your report was a mistake, they begged, bowing their heads to me. As if I could believe that. I said, pushing them away. They muttered, "What should we do?" and slumped down where they stood. After that, Timothy and Sarah were arrested, and the children were temporarily placed in protective custody. The incident was widely reported in the news and weekly magazines, with my son and daughter-in-law's names and faces exposed. Even after they're released from prison, they'll likely live the rest of their lives being pointed at and whispered about. As for me, I ended up taking in and raising both grandchildren. With another precious little one added to my life, I can't stop smiling. My friends tell me, "You look so youthful these days." Perhaps it's because I have a new purpose in life. I'm not entirely displeased with the compliment. Olivia is a great help around the house, and I'm truly grateful for her. I'm determined to stay healthy and energetic so I can watch my grandchildren grow up. That's what I'm focusing on now. I'm Sarah Johnson. I live with my husband Michael and our 2 sons in a leafy suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. At 38, I work as a teacher at a local elementary school, while Michael, 40, is a programmer at an IT company. Our home is a 2-story house with a spacious backyard. On weekends, we cherish family time, having barbecues in the backyard or enjoying picnics in the nearby park. Living this way, I realize we're leading a typical middle-class American life. Our eldest son, Ethan, is a bright and lively 6-year-old. He's popular at school, and friends often come over to play. But Ethan has a special ability that other children don't. Sometimes, he can read people's minds or foresee future events. At first, we thought Ethan's predictions were just coincidences or products of a child's imagination. But an incident when he was 4 years old dramatically changed our thinking. One day, Ethan suddenly burst into tears, saying, "Grandpa's going to heaven." At the time, we thought it was just childish nonsense. However, 3 days later, my father passed away from a sudden heart attack. Since then, we've paid close attention to Ethan's words. Our younger son, Noah, is 4 years old and quite different from Ethan. He's quiet and calm, loving to read books or play with Legos, often engrossed in solitary play. The brothers get along well, and I'm grateful that Ethan often looks after Noah. Our family lives with mutual care and support. Sometimes we struggle to balance work and family, but Michael and I have overcome challenges together. Watching our children grow is our greatest happiness. No one could have predicted that our peaceful days would change completely after that fateful day. One Saturday afternoon, Michael and I were doing yard work in the backyard. Ethan and Noah were playing inside the house as usual. Suddenly, Ethan came running out to the yard, crying, "Mom! Dad! Noah's gone." At first, we thought he might be hiding somewhere in the house. But after searching everywhere, we couldn't find Noah. Anxiety began to spread in my chest. Michael and I split up to search the neighborhood, but Noah was nowhere to be found. Panicking, I called 911. The police arrived and took details about Noah's disappearance. A search began immediately, with neighbors helping out. Hours passed, but Noah wasn't found. The police started a wider search and asked local media for cooperation. Our entire community mobilized to search for Noah. As night fell, I held a sobbing Ethan, praying for Noah's safety. Michael tried desperately to stay calm, but fear and anxiety were visible in his eyes. "Noah, please be safe," I repeated in my heart. Even the next day, Noah wasn't found. The search continued, with the FBI joining the investigation. We held a press conference, appealing to the public for information about Noah. "Has anyone seen our son Noah? He's 4 years old, with brown hair and blue eyes. He was last seen wearing a blue t-shirt and jeans. Please, any information, no matter how small, could help us find our son." My voice was shaking, but I managed to get the words out. Michael held my shoulder, supporting me. The community's support was heartening. Neighbors brought food and looked after Ethan. The church community held gatherings to pray for Noah's safety. However, as days passed, we felt hope fading. The police reports were always the same, no new leads. Ethan started crying at night, saying he could sense Noah was scared. We tried to comfort him, but Ethan's words filled me with fear too. A week passed, then a month, and then a year. The search was scaled back, and media interest waned. But we never gave up. We kept putting up Noah's pictures around town and spreading information on social media. Every night, I went to Noah's room, hugging his stuffed animals and praying. "Noah, Mommy will keep looking for you. We'll find you, I promise." Our family changed a lot over this year. We smiled less and talked less. Ethan became less active, and his teacher told us he had become quieter at school. Michael and I's relationship was also strained by stress. We didn't blame each other, but grief and anxiety seemed to build a wall between us. Still, we couldn't give up hope. We believed Noah was safe and kept waiting for the day he would return. About a year after Noah's disappearance, Michael's sister Jessica came to visit us for the first time in a while. She hadn't shown her face much, probably sensing our grief. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, Jessica was standing there. "Sarah, it's been a while. How are you?" She smiled gently at me. "Jessica, thank you for coming. Please, come in," I invited her inside. In the living room, Ethan was watching TV. He looked a bit confused when he saw his aunt but quickly said, "Hello, Aunt Jessica." As Jessica approached Ethan to hug him, his expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, "This woman is hiding my brother." Those words froze me, Jessica, and Michael, who had just entered the room. Ethan was trembling, standing behind me as if hiding. "Ethan, what are you saying?" I asked, trying to stay calm despite my shock. "Noah is at Aunt's house." "I can tell," Ethan answered with a serious expression. Jessica's face turned red. "What are you saying?" "That's impossible," she raised her voice. The atmosphere in the room instantly became tense. Michael looked confused, glancing back and forth between his sister Jessica and son Ethan. I felt my mind go blank. Remembering Ethan's strange ability, I struggled with whether to believe his words or think rationally. Michael sighed deeply and said, "Jessica, I'm sorry, but could you go home today? We need to talk as a family." Jessica was clearly upset but nodded and left. After she was gone, we were left in a heavy silence. "Michael, what should we do?" I asked my husband, seeking help. Michael ruffled his hair as he answered, "Honestly, I don't know. Should we believe Ethan's words, or?" We felt the complexity of American family relationships acutely. The difficulty of doubting blood relatives, the heart wavering between a child's intuition and adult rationality. There were no easy answers to these issues. Ethan looked at us with tears in his eyes. "Mom, Dad, please believe me. I'm not lying." I hugged Ethan and said, "We understand, honey. Mom and Dad will think about this seriously." That night, after the children were asleep, Michael and I talked for a long time. We couldn't completely ignore Ethan's words. However, we also wanted to avoid unjustly suspecting family. "Sarah, if Ethan's words are true." Michael's voice was shaking. "But to suspect Jessica without evidence." I couldn't hide my hesitation either. We also considered American laws and social norms. The danger of suspecting an innocent person, but at the same time, the idea that children's safety should be the top priority. In the end, we didn't reach a conclusion that night. But we knew we needed to take some action. The next morning, we made a decision. Directly confronting Jessica was too risky. We decided to start by investigating discreetly. Michael took a day off work to look around Jessica's house. I decided to casually ask around the neighborhood. Before leaving the house, we told Ethan, "We believe your words. But we need to act carefully. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded, looking relieved. "Yes, I understand. I hope we can help Noah." Our investigation began. Between family bonds and truth, we set out to find answers. After several days of investigation, we made a decision. We would visit Jessica's house directly and search her garage. In American suburbs, it's common for houses to have large garages. Jessica's house was no exception. On a Saturday afternoon, Michael and I headed to Jessica's house. Feeling my stomach knot with tension, I rang the doorbell. After a while, Jessica appeared with a confused expression. "Sarah, Michael. What's wrong?" Her voice held a note of caution. Michael took a deep breath and said, "Jessica, can we see your garage?" The color drained from Jessica's face. "Huh? Why?" "We're concerned about what Ethan said," I added in a small voice. Jessica was clearly flustered, but perhaps aware of the neighbor's eyes, she reluctantly invited us in. In American suburbs, neighborly relations are important. People generally try to avoid trouble. Entering the living room, Jessica tried desperately to appear calm. The garage is just a pile of junk. It's not worth seeing. However, Michael didn't back down. Still, I'd like to check. Jessica hesitated for a moment but eventually agreed. All right. But there's really nothing there. Led by Jessica, we went through the kitchen towards the garage. As the door opened, my heart was pounding fiercely. The moment we stepped into the garage, musty air hit our noses. Cars, gardening tools, and old furniture were scattered about. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary garage. But Michael's sharp eyes caught something. That door. He pointed to a small door in the back wall. Jessica hurriedly began to make excuses. That's just a storage room. There's nothing. Michael cut off her words and started walking towards the door. Jessica desperately tried to stop him, but Michael's determination was firm. Open it, Jessica. Michael's voice was shaking, but there was a strong will behind it. Jessica, looking like she was about to cry, hesitated for a while but eventually took a key out of her pocket. The sound of the key turning seemed unusually loud. As the door opened, a dark space spread before us. Just as Michael was about to enter, we heard a faint sound. Is someone there? I called out in a trembling voice. Then, a small shadow moved from the back. Michael took out a flashlight, and when he shone it, there was Noah, looking thin and frail. Noah! I cried out, rushing towards him without thinking. Noah was frightened at first, but when he recognized our faces, he burst into tears. Mama! Papa! We hugged Noah tightly. After a year apart, we were speechless. The tears wouldn't stop. Meanwhile, Jessica had collapsed onto the floor. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She kept repeating, sobbing. The air in the room was tense. The desire to protect Noah, anger towards Jessica, and fear of the gravity of the situation were all mixed together. Michael sighed deeply and took out his cell phone. We have to call the police. At those words, Jessica cried even harder. But we had no choice. Holding Noah, I was overwhelmed by complex emotions. Relief that my son was safe, anger and sadness towards Jessica, and anxiety about the difficulties ahead. It's okay, Noah. You're safe now. I gently stroked Noah's head. Noah nodded slightly and clung to me. His body was thin and trembling, but he was alive. While Michael called the police, we moved from the garage to the living room. Jessica followed, looking completely broken. The time until the police arrived felt like an eternity. We continued to hold our son, sensing the long road ahead of us. After the police arrived and we explained the situation, we learned about Jessica's motives. As she responded to police questioning, she began to speak tearfully. I wanted a child. But I'm infertile. We gasped at Jessica's confession. In American society, many couples struggle with infertility. Despite advances in medical technology, the emotional and financial burden is significant, and many people suffer. Jessica continued, even after treatment, it didn't work. But everyone around me had children. We could feel the weight of social pressure in her words. When I saw Noah, impulsively, she covered her face and began to cry violently. Listening to this confession, I keenly felt the challenges of mental health in American society. With appropriate counseling and support, perhaps this tragedy could have been prevented. Michael sighed deeply. Jessica, why didn't you talk to us? She answered in a small voice, I was ashamed. I couldn't tell anyone. This incident highlighted the importance of family communication and the need for social understanding of mental health issues. After Noah's rescue, we headed to the hospital. While he was being examined by doctors, people from the community gathered in the hospital lobby. Voices of joy over Noah's safety could be heard everywhere. Thank goodness, it's a miracle, even strangers were shedding tears. I strongly felt the unity of the American community. It's in difficult times that people support each other. The doctor informed us that Noah's physical condition was relatively good, but psychological care would be necessary. Professional support is crucial, the doctor emphasized. When we returned home, neighbors brought food and necessary supplies. Church groups also visited, offering spiritual support. Ethan was overjoyed to be reunited with his brother, jumping up and down. Noah, I'll never let you go again, he said, hugging him tightly. It warmed my heart. Through this experience, I deeply felt the importance of professional care and community support. I realized that while a single family might not be able to overcome such difficulties alone, with help from others, we can overcome anything. Several weeks after the incident, our family was gradually trying to return to normalcy. However, the impact of the trauma was significant, especially with Noah's continued night terrors. During this time, Jessica's trial was also progressing. The court, considering her mental state, ordered treatment in a mental health facility rather than prison. While we had mixed feelings, we tried to understand that this was the best path for Jessica. In America, family therapy and counseling are common in such situations. We too began our journey of recovery, guided by professional advice. Once a week, the whole family visits a therapist. There, we put our feelings into words and understand each other's pain. When Ethan confided, I want to cry when Noah cries, I felt the depth of our family bond. We also had individual counseling sessions. Noah gradually regained his smile through play therapy. Michael and I also received couples counseling. By frankly discussing our emotional ups and downs and feelings for each other after the incident, our relationship deepened. Sarah, I'm so glad you're here, Michael said, and I couldn't stop my tears. The American health insurance system was also a great support, allowing us to continue these treatments consistently. There were tough days, but as we all moved forward together as a family, smiles gradually increased. Now, 5 years after the incident, our family has grown significantly. Noah is happily attending elementary school and even excelling on the soccer team. Although he occasionally fears memories of the past, he overcomes them with family support. Ethan has grown into a good big brother who protects his younger sibling, and he's become a trusted figure at school. His special ability is now an important element that deepens our family bond. Michael and I's relationship has become even stronger than before. Overcoming difficulties has deepened our trust and love for each other. Our connection with the community has also strengthened. Interactions with neighbors have become an essential part of our lives. We have more opportunities to express our gratitude, saying, "Thanks to all of you, our family has become stronger." We also realize the importance of America's social support system. Ongoing counseling and participation in support groups continue to aid our recovery. Through this experience, we've learned the importance of family bonds and hope. We believe that with love and mutual support, any difficulty can be overcome. With this belief, we continue to live each day with smiles on our faces.